Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is the first of several fantastic events and educational programs that we're running on Sales Community. This one in particular, really excited about. We're calling it Designing Your Life with Tony Jerry. It's going to be 9 sessions every other Tuesday, also called Tuesdays with Tony. And Tony Jerry's been a great friend, executive coach of mine and several others. He's written over 60-something books. But before we hear from Tony, let's roll the video.
Man, goal setting, a great subject. Randy, what do you think about goal setting?
Absolutely. It's all about your life. Nothing more important than your life and others around you, for sure.
You know, when we were thinking about kicking off this series and you suggested to my team that goal setting would be the first one to kind of really kick off to, I was excited about that. It's a subject I really love. The book there, Designing Your Life, is available in Sales Community, free to our members. And I really want to bring that to life today. Let's get started by talking about the purpose, process, and payoff, and kind of walk everybody through where we're going to go. We want to really look at our objectives, our purpose, to inspire everybody to take action. Randy, what I've experienced in teaching this over the years is, you know, people really have a whole kind of spectrum, if you will, and they actually go in and out of the amount of detail that they go into in their goal setting. And we want to inspire everybody when we uncover some of the distinctions today about goal setting. And you know, when we do events, when I write a book, when I do a video, one of the things I attempt to do is really bring in a lot of ahas and epiphanies. And at the minimum level, we want everybody to have some perspectives from the subject today. And obviously, if we can go another level and people can really connect it as angles that relates to themselves, that's a good thing. But at the highest level, Randy, I think what we want to deliver for everybody listening is really to be able to have ahas and some epiphanies, things that you really haven't thought of, kind of life-changing kind of distinctions. So that's my hope for everybody as part of our purpose. We've divided our time together today into 4 areas. We're going to talk about planning for your success. The second part, why goals work. We really want to uncover a part of the brain called the reticular activating system. It's something, Randy, I found that a lot of people don't know about. And once you know about it, then you better understand why you should be more serious about goal setting. I know you are. We want to help everybody that's part of the Sales Community be more enthused, inspired, and really taking action. And I think giving them the why is a big deal. A lot of people miss number 3. They start setting their goals and actually running their whole life without really being clear on their values. And I'm talking about crystal clear. And we got an exercise today that I think everybody's going to like. And then the last part's visualizing your goals. And Randy and I got to share some personal things that we do in terms of writing down, looking at, and actually putting visual cues around our life to help us accomplish more of what we want and the life that we want. So the payoff is acquiring unique knowledge. And again, Randy, so everybody knows we want to hit personal and professional.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things is just being disciplined about it. As obvious as it is, I find people say, yeah, I have to do it. But if you think about, okay, if you're a new sales rep going to a job, you're going to have your 90-day plan. If you're an executive, if you're a leader, you're going to have kind of your quarterly goals. So people do it religiously for their work lives, but yet when it comes to their personal life around all the areas that count, for whatever reason, they just don't do it. So if you apply the same skills and mindset that you do to your job in terms of measuring and seeing what you're doing and how you want to do it, just do that for your life. And again, easier said than done, but a lot of great info to come here for sure.
You nailed it, brother. You nailed it. Personal and professional. Let's talk about guidelines so everybody kind of gets it. Chat and questions will come in. We've got some questions that we've had coming in beforehand. We'll talk about. We want to encourage everybody to take notes. We think that you remember more if you take notes. Item number 3 is a little unusual. We want to encourage our viewers to make sure that you have your cameras out, pull your cameras out and take a picture of any of the slides that you think would be something you really want to remember. Oftentimes people don't do that. and they're not ready. They miss a slide, and they could really be missing something that could really be impactful for their life. We want to kind of get into a rhythm today as we kind of flow through this. We want to be very conversational, just like you're in the living room here with Randy and I. And then the last one's the assessment. Some of the things, Randy, that came into the pre-assessment was that a third of the folks that did the assessment came back and said personal development was a big deal on a choice. And of the big six, financial and professional was the top. So we'll hit those as well today. Let's go into go ahead, man.
I do this also with college students, and more and more, I'm not shocked, but understand it now that the mental side is something that's really of concern to them. And when we do the surveys for that, it's probably more like 80, 90%. So that's interesting, and also worth noting that it's relevant to do not just with yourselves, but whether you're in technology sales or not, but any stage of your life, including with your kids, whether it's high school or college age or in 20 somethings.
Agree, Randy, and you just triggered my thinking. I should have said this earlier on the guidelines. In order to get the most out of this, if you could be taking notes also for others that are part of your life. If you hear something that would be valuable for your kids or your spouse or maybe a team member, take a note of that or a picture of that and make sure and share that with those people that are inner circle for you. That way you get more out of the effort, not to throw my daughter under the bus, but I was talking to her as we're prepping for this, and I would say, people have asked, hey, how does it work with your kids? And I won't name any other names, but some of them do it, some of them don't. And she just said, hey, it was a great reminder. I really have to get back in doing this. And they're in high school. A couple of my kids would kind of write down their goals, and it might start with kind of 3 things, 5 things, 10 things, and then just kind of grows from there as their life goes and grows. Yeah, agreed. It's so valuable to model for your kids and to model for your people. If you tell them to set goals and you don't do it, then you really aren't modeling it. Our first section, Randy, is plan for your success. We've got just 2 slides. I got a quote here I like to put out in front of everybody. Having clearly defined goals allows you to literally design your own life. Again, that's why I titled that book cover, the title on my book cover, Design Your Own Life, because that's what we're all about. And in the book, we talk pretty heavy about these 6 areas. And Randy, you believe in it. I believe in it. These are great areas to be kind of dividing things up. Education is something that we need to constantly do. I know for me, Randy, I think I was sharing with you just recently about how in the past I kind of got out of listening to audios, and I needed to be thinking about, I was missing that. So I needed to set a personal development goal to listen to audios now. And I almost every day am living up to that, some of the goals that I've set there. I want to hit many, many books. I like to read almost a book a week in order to do that. The audio is the way that works for me. I also read summaries a lot, and those are in my educational and personal development segment of my goals. Randy, I'm kind of an out there kind of guy. People, some are on this side, kind of like 0, and some like have a lot. I have 150 pages of goals, and that's a lot. I just really believe in this. And when I write about a book, one of the things I do before I author it, I make sure I'm living it. I wrote a book with another friend of mine called Advice Matters. And in that book, we said, take advice from people that have done what you want to do or doing it. And so hopefully you'll recognize from Randy and I's discussion here in this training that he and I both believe in and do the things we're talking about. You can see home and family life, physical life, social life, spiritual life. Randy, any comments you'd like to make on this slide?
Yeah, so that's just a precursor about Tony. So I don't know, I can't really use the word kind of wacky, or maybe extremes probably a little bit better, but you'll see later on several examples. So I just want to set the expectations. And then also with these, just keep in mind, we sent out some personal assessments around these areas, some things that Tony and I do. So that will be, you should have seen that before. And if not, you can certainly see it afterward on the recording that we're doing. And then, with these, just keep in mind to say, okay, how am I doing now? What are some things I want to improve, and the time frame and the priority can all be yours. And then another one I get asked about a lot is spiritual, but for everybody, I'm not going to get into the details, but that's not putting our beliefs on anybody, but just kind of around that, a lot of different perspectives and what's important to you or not important to you.
Bingo. All right, so section number 2, why goals work, and this is where potentially we have Tucker, I think that you saw some of these things where we have like some ahas, we have some epiphanies here, because a lot of people aren't familiar with the distinction of a reticular activating system that's part of our brain. You know, if we're really clear that we have that mechanism that acts like a gatekeeper in our brain, then we can be more motivated. Here's how it works, guys. If you look at the brain here, and you look at the bottom of the brain, there's a set of nerves at the stem that really lets things in or out. We perceive so much information. You can see our brains can only handle so much. And so what happens, we filter things in and out. And the way that works is this, or an example I like to use, Randy, is when you get a new vehicle, or say you buy a new vehicle, and the next week or two, you start looking around and you see that vehicle everywhere. Is that true, Tucker?
Very true.
And then you think about it, then you say, did I really see all those vehicles 2 weeks before? And you really didn't always see them 2 weeks before, but they were there. You just didn't notice them. So what happens to your brain is your brain kind of lets things in that you care about. So when you write goals down, when you visualize goals, when you talk about the things that you want to achieve, you attract people, you attract information, you attract distinctions, and you really open your brain up. And what I propose is you get pulling power. And that pulling power can be so valuable in your sales accomplishments, in your life accomplishments, and things that you want to do. And I just encourage you to really think about the power of the reticular activating system and writing things down, talking about them, understanding, visualizing, and you're really feeding your brain what you want it to create. Your body goes to work to make it happen. Any comments before I show a video? I got a cool video, Randy, that's available in our sales community, but we want to show it today as well.
Yeah, a couple of little examples. I remember when I was young, my father got a Toyota Tercel, and it goes red, and we got it. So there's not that many red cars, and all of a sudden we get it, and all of a sudden it seems like there's red cars all over the place. And then another example that you have used in some of your face-to-face sessions when I was at HP is the FedEx truck. If you look at the logo, there's actually an arrow embedded in there, which is hard to see unless you really look for it. And then last comment is I was talking to a good friend, Marty Sanders, who's also on our advisory board, and he was a big fan early on of the Tony Robbins sessions, and he said this was one of the key attributes in terms of getting everybody understanding and focused around, setting their goals and everything else. So, really amazing to think about. So let's go to the video.
All right, ready? Pop it. Here we go.
Myself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered, and I gave myself 5 years, or 3 years maybe, and I dated it Thanksgiving 1995, and I put it in my wallet, and I kept it there, and it deteriorated and stuff, but then just before Thanksgiving 1995, I found out that I was going to make $10 million on, I think it was Dumb and Dumber.
You know, we picked some of our best videos to be able to share. And before we go into the values, let's unpack that video a little bit. There's two things, Randy, I want to comment on, and then after I comment on, maybe you could. I think everybody saw that there was three pieces to the video puzzle. One was to write your goals down. Two was to visualize them, and three was self-talk. Several years ago, I was on a hike with a good friend of mine, Peter Thomas, who's the chairman emeritus and one of the co-founders of EO. And he and I were hiking down an eight-hour hike down the Grand Canyon. And Dr. Ed Wolski was with me, and he said one of the things he discovered was his self-talk was not congruent with some of his goals. And Tucker, you and I were talking about earlier about how important that is to understand self-talk. What do you perceive when people say self-talk, Tucker? What goes on in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, when I hear self-talk, it's more, I look at it as sort of hyping yourself up and talking, making sure you're talking to yourself and thinking in a positive manner. And I think it's really easy to get distracted and all of a sudden go down sort of a negative talk track. So I think it's important to be able to keep that in a positive light. You bet.
And what he was telling me, Ed was saying things like, my staff can never just be as organized as I am. And he's like self-sabotaging, right? Andy, think about that. We got what we're saying to ourselves, and then what we say out loud needs to be congruent with our goals. And so that could be an aha or maybe even an epiphany for some people that are listening, Randy, is it's like you got to have all of that. And, I was a squatter, Randy, for years on this whole visualization deal. I'm going to talk about it in a minute. I got the idea of doing vision boarding, and what a squatter is, so everybody knows, a squatter is someone that gets good information and doesn't do squat about it. And I was one of those guys. Like, I didn't do squat about visualizing my goals on a vision board like I could have for several years. And I encourage everybody today, and I know there's going to be some squatters that watch this, and they're going to go, man, Randy, that's a good idea, or Tony, that's a good idea, and they don't do squat about it. And I hate that. But most people, I think, are going to really jump in and take that. In the video, I talk about several things. Let's make sure that you've written this down. When you set your goals and you open up your reticular activating system, most people set goals, Randy, on what they want to have. I want to have a great pipeline. I want to have a great house. I want to have a great car. I want to have a great financial statement. And they don't think about what they want to experience, share, give, and most importantly, what they want to become. And so I think there's 5 things there. Let me go over those again. One is not just what you want to have, but what you want to share, give, experience, and most importantly, become. So 5 things you want to set your goals around. And again, you want to make sure, as it said in the video, self-talk is congruent with what you've written down. Randy, what do you think?
Yeah, and I'd argue self-talk's great, but it's kind of, if you're playing baseball, you can't get to second or third or score until you get to first. So first base is writing them down, and that's the hardest thing. So, everybody's going to get, on this call right now, let alone when you get off, just kind of write down anything for any goals at all, whether you want to pick a month or 6 months or whatever. And that is the first step, which is the hardest. But once you do that, everything else matters. You're going to get the visualization. You're going to get the self-talk. You're going to get the reward of the execution. And by the way, later on, I think we'll be showing a little bit of my goals, but you're never going to hit them all. But if you don't aim, you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there. So just like with business, just like with your personal life.
Yeah, bingo. Well said. All right, let's go to our third segment, guys. This is on values. And what we've discovered, Randy, is a lot of people that do set goals, or not, either one, have not taken the time to really design their own life around what they value. I have certain things that are on my value list, like health's a big deal. And for years, I didn't deploy my actions congruent with my goals, congruent with my values. And we'd like to do a little exercise, and I'd like to point out that establishing your values is the perfect way to start with designing your own life. So if you really are saying, all right, Tony and Randy, you got me going here. I want to get into goal setting either more or start doing it. Here's what I want to encourage you to do. Start with documenting 6 to 10 values, and I'm going to give you a list of those in just a minute. You'll probably want to take a picture of them. We'll hold them up for a minute so everybody can look at them. But really gaining clarity of what you value just matters so much, and so that your goals that you set align with your values, and again, the actions align with your goals. So here's a list of 60 different values that we built into a card deck, and we oftentimes will share when we're working with our executives or our leaders, or in any case, sometimes just working with anybody that we're coaching. We say, look at these 60 values. These are not the only values. These are 60 common values. And like earlier, I was talking about just education as a value. Are you really learning as much as you can? And you got to self-assess yourself. You know, if you believe education is important, then maybe you need to write some things down about that. Tucker, is education a big deal to you?
Yeah, very big deal. I think, you know, especially as you're going through your career, you got to be a lifelong learner. So you know, if that's high up on your list, it's all about taking action. There are plenty of avenues that you can take throughout the course of your life and your career that you can continue to further your education.
And, you know, that's a big part of Randy, right? It's a big part of sales community. I know when you and I were building kind of the vision that you had, and you said, hey, I want to make sure that we have incredible content organized with your great team member, Jesse, where it's such a great way to be able to get to it and use it in education. Look at health right there, number 27. You know, if you believe in health, then, you know, are you setting your goals in alignment with that? And then are you taking action? What goes through your mind, Randy, when you look at this list?
Yeah, I guess another question I get asked a lot, and somebody had on the chat here, you know, how do you balance everything? So, you know, even you, I think, may eventually confess. I'll definitely confess. Nobody's going to be a perfect 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, but balance is kind of being okay in your own head with where you're at. So, example, when we met at HP, went through this with you, and I had on the, you know, kind of prioritized some key values for me, and, you know, friends and health is, you know, on my top probably 5 or top 10, but for me at the time, I'm not going to be able to, you know, work out in the mornings like I want to do because I'm traveling up late, you know, early for flights, kind of you know, things like that. Friends likewise are going to suffer, but it made me be comfortable that, okay, at the time, family and work were a priority, and the health and the other aspect of friends, I'm going to kind of not spend as much time with, but at least I'm okay with that myself. Because for me, that's balanced at that time. And then based on kind of where you're at with all these different things, it's going to kind of ebb and flow.
Bingo, bingo, bingo. And I made that mistake, Randy, for years. I taught the concept you should always be in balance. And I don't believe that today. I think that's an incorrect concept. I think you should be managing balance. And as you just said, you know, I oftentimes use the example, if you're in your young 20s and you're in the educational area of your life, you want to be able to seek positions where you can learn. Right? Not that we don't always want to learn. We always want to learn. And you might be a little heavier on education. Or if you have someone, you know, that has a health situation in your family, you might need to be a little bit out of balance to take care of that loved one in a situation where their health is failing. And so I suggest, as Randy said, it's not about the perfect balance. It's about managing your own balance. And then very specifically, you want to be able to run your life around what you value. Like, I love adventure, and I want to go out and see places. And I know many people on the line love adventure as well, like to travel. I mean, if that's a big deal, like, you know, do you set those goals up a little bit later? I'm going to show you some visualization of things that I personally do. And I've traveled to many, many countries because of that, taking my kids to many countries because of that. So anyway, bottom line, take a picture of this if you haven't yet. And if you haven't, start kind of ticking off your top 10. From that picture later after we finish this training, we encourage you to jump right in and pick your top 10. And it's not easy to get down to 10 because there's a lot of things that we value. The more focus we have, the better. And then once you get your value set, then it's easier to really determine a purpose statement, if you will. And I think a lot of people struggle with this one. I happen to have one. I think it's easier to have one when you have gone through and really articulated what you value. So one takeaway there, if you really believe what I'm sharing, what we're sharing here on the purpose, what are you all about? And then make that aligned with your values. Then after that, then you can really start defining your goals. Again, the 6 areas that Randy and I are proposing, there could be 8 areas, 5 areas, 10 areas. We happen to like, for us, these 6 areas as a kind of pretty much everything can fall into it. And taking your dreams and goals and really defining and make sure they're aligned with your values. Randy, thoughts?
Yeah, totally. Another side story. There's several friends that are on this call that went to Boston College together, and we had a professor that had a class called Personal Goaling, Frank Ladwig, rest in peace. But he had something called 7 sides, so same thing, instead of 6 had 7, but kind of pass this piece of paper out. And for several of us, John Clavin's one that comes to mind that still teaches a class at Boston College. And when I go there, I actually speak about this, and we'll go through and resurrect. Hey, when I was in your shoes as a college student, Frank Ladwig put this on, and it's something that I was just so struck with. And at the time, it was just a piece of paper, and then I would just kind of write something down on that. But then over time, just getting in that mindset really helps to frame you up for success, especially if you're in sales, especially if you're in technology sales.
Yep, agreed. We got a chat here on the whole idea of conflicting goals. Let's talk about that for a minute. Tucker, you and I were talking about earlier about that too as well. What happens if you have something on your list or something you want to accomplish and you have conflict with your time? Well, one of the things Randy said is you got to be able to manage that, what's important right now. And I want to tell you about a story. I was having lunch with a good friend of mine, Brian Tracy, several years ago, and we were discussing what happens if you have something on your goal list and you're not achieving it. And, I asked him that. He said, well, are the goals you're not achieving still your goals? And man, I was like, I had an epiphany right there. I was like, wow. He's like, they're your goals, your life, you can change them. And I was like, no, some of those are not my goals anymore. We'll change them, update them. And this years ago, and I was like, wow, I need to share that, because that's a lot of people miss that, right? Your goals are evolving, things happen, you discover new things. You go as far as you can see, you set goals accordingly, you can see further, and then you make adjustments, What do you think, Tucker?
No, I think that's spot on. Just being able to find that balance and understand what's, at this point in your life, what's top priority, what's top of mind. That's a huge piece of it.
This next slide is the last of the series, and I'm going to stack them all together. And this is the number one thing, Randy, that's come out of the 60 books that I've published so far. If anything, all those books behind me, I've got tons of them. The number one thing that people responded to was the concept of high leverage activities. In today's fast-paced world, what we found is people really struggle with time. And my term for prioritization is high leverage activities. Being really clear on what's important to you, being able to say no so you can say yes to the things that matter the most. So you really want to be able to line up, if you will, all the things we just talked about. Your values that make your purpose easier, your goals then tied to your values, and then your actions or your high leverage activities tied to your values. And so the things you're doing day in and day out are all aligned. Pretty simple, great picture to take. I want to talk a little bit about, I wrote a book, Randy, a few years ago called Results Faster. And we're going to be talking about that in our series. So I want everybody to be looking forward to that in our series. And a good friend of mine that owns Success Magazine, we teamed up and did a whole video course on Results Faster. And one of the things we did is we hired the IP lead behind Tony Robbins for almost 20 years. Her name's Pam Henderson, and she did such a great job of taking my first 44 books and pulling the best lessons. And one of those lessons that we write about, Randy, is saying no. And a lot of people, when they have their goals set up with their actions or HLAs, they can say no more effectively. And the example I'd like to unpack and use with everybody right now is, let's say, Randy, you called me up and said, hey, Tony, I'd like to have lunch with you. And I'm running through my brain and I'm looking at here and I'm like, what are my HLAs? Is having lunch with Randy going to support my goals? And I go, before I say yes, because a lot of people say yes, and then it's a 2-hour commitment, drive somewhere, meet somewhere. And I go, well, Randy, what's up? What do you want? What's on your mind with having lunch? He said, well, your protege, Daniel, I want to meet him and spend some more time with him. I just got a chance to meet him just slightly. And I was impressed with a couple of distinctions, and I just wanted to have some chat with him. And I was like, dude, let me tell you what, why don't I just email connect you and you guys, chat. And Randy's thinking to himself, wow, that's great. I didn't really have time to have lunch with Tony anyway. I just want to have some time with Daniel. So the point that I bring out there, guys, is if you're clear on your HLAs, then, and it really lines all the way up to living your values, then you can say no more effectively. And you can oftentimes give people what they want without saying yes to things that might not be an HLA. Comments, guys? What do you think?
So I guess I just learned having lunch with me is not a highly valued activity. Is that it?
Well, that's not true, Randy. That's not true. Dude,
But
you're one of my favorite people in the world, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, come on, dude. You know that. Come on.
Anyway.
20 years together.
Anyway, we got a big crowd here. We got to keep going. So, and also tied in with that is, as you get asked, and we all get asked for things, and sometimes, initially I used to think it was rude when we were talking about this, but then, especially if it's somebody that you don't know well. I mean, how many times we have strangers or friends of friends ask for something, and I find it better just to say, hey, sorry to be short, but what is it that you want? And whatever that is, then it's an easier kind of ping or email or quick call or text or whatever it is, and think about all these different things. And now with COVID, I guess it's a little bit easier because you're phone or Zoom centric, so you can in fact be a lot more productive. Although you get a lot of Zoom fatigue, which I posted something on LinkedIn the other day by chance. But I think just figuring out and either getting it done faster or just that no, and does that no align with the values and goals that you have?
Bingo. Yeah, bingo. Time management's a big deal. Saying no aligns with this whole deal on HLAs, and just know that we've got a lot of great content on Sales Community around those subjects, so make sure that you dig in. Let's go to our last of our 4 segments now, and that's visualizing your goals. I'm not so sure that I could say this is the most important. I got to say, Randy, that again, I was a squatter on this, and shame on me, but I want to admit it that like sometimes you learn from things where you make your mistakes. And I was just a few years from really taking action on this. I got the idea 15 years ago to really set up a what I call now a results board. What kind of results do you want professionally and personally? And I want to share a little bit about mine. I've got a cool video before I go into mine. And let me just hit with this slide about visioning though. One of the best ways to really motivate ourselves is to be able to see things. And I personally, I have things in my garage. I have things in my medicine cabinet. I have things in my closet. I have goals that I've set and live out. Things that I prayed for my kids that have been in my closet for over 20 years. It's a long time. And once goals are written down, you visualize it, you get this powerful impact. So I've got a short video that again is on Sales Community, but we want to show it right now about results boarding. So let's take a look at it.
This is a lead into one of the extreme aspects of companies.
Remember, it's not just about what you want to have, it's about what you want to experience and share and, of course, become.
So, Randy, are you calling me an extremist?
Yeah, well, today's day and age, you got to be careful what words you use. That might have bad connotations. So I have to.
Would you say that I'm a little bit out there on goal set? What's that?
I have to say no comment, but go ahead. This is.
Well, dude, so are you.
For all of us.
Well, thinking about this, man, I mean, we're about to show some of your goals, right? I mean, you got them organized, systemized. Like when I coach people at the very top, like you, and you go and take action, and then you see it come to reality, you just dig it. And I just want all of us that are on the line to have Randy and I's passion about goal setting, right? This is not like, hey, we're just doing a webinar here. This is what we live and breathe, right, Randy? I mean, this works, right?
Absolutely. All right, keep going.
Okay, so here's what we say. If you want to, when I started with mine, I just started with a cork board. You can see the picture there, stapled up, goals wall, results board, whatever you want to call it. Put it up there. And then I encourage people in the books that I've written, and I'm encouraging you right now, is to have a family mission statement. Almost every company today has some kind of statement about where they're going, what they're about. And so many people, this is an aha, they don't have a mission statement for their family. When my kids are 4 years old, we made our first one. It has been our mission statement ever since, and that's been 23 years ago. And we live our life walking, exercising, praying together, thinking together. You can see there, when they were 4 years old, it had to be pretty simple. And so we built it pretty simple. So let me encourage you, if you're not doing that, to have a mission statement for your family. On the right side, I wanted to take pictures of my kids loving each other, holding each other. And my kids now are just like super tight as adults, so powerful. I put things like this up in my gym, my learning years, earning years, so that it helps reinforce for me, if you will. I had this 10 or 15 years of learning from the time I was about 17, 18 till the time I was about, 35 or so. And those were my key learning years. And then the earning years started in, and I reinforced that. Now, here's one for you, Randy. And I know that a lot of people do this, but a lot of people don't. It's like, if you value adventure and travel, set up a kind of a travel board. What do you think of that one, Tucker?
I like one. I like that. I see a lot of thumbtacks in there. Looks like you've been zipping around.
Post COVID, I guess. So now I'm in the Boston area. You can't even go to Vermont, so that's an aspirational goal. Let alone flying across the ocean. Crazy.
I've flown 3,500 trips, Randy. 3,500, and in the last 6 months, I've flown once, and it's like, wow, that's just like an unusual deal, an unusual deal. Let me show you my vision board as of about a month or two ago, before I moved into my new condo. Here's what I built my vision board into, so everybody can kind of get a perspective. Some things I'd like to point out is I have my wife on the right, Tammy, and myself on the left, and our two main people in our life is Paige and Brooke. And then we call Brooke above her name as a cheerleader. We call Paige our champion, and we name our kids, and they live up to those names. If you don't name your kids, that's something to think about doing. Each one of my kids makes champions out of people as a teacher, and my oldest daughter cheers people on everywhere she goes with her great attitude. And you can see that I put also on their accomplishments. I think that's a great thing to do. People miss that. When you've accomplished something, you put a picture of it. And I sure appreciate, Daniel, that deal you gave me of the key, the new house thing. Daniel got a new house, and we helped him put some things together, and he gave me a great visual of the accomplishment. And I put it up my desk, in my personal desk. I just encourage everybody to do that. Now, Randy, should I get now really personal now? I got a couple more. Sometimes I wig people out. What do you think, buddy?
Go ahead. The extreme go.
There we go. All right. So in my closet, like when my kids, Tucker, do you have kids, Tucker?
I do not know.
When my kids were for about 6 years old, we made a list from discussions of the type of young men that they were going to date and one day marry. And so now, for many, many years, up until the time they were 14 or 15 and started dating, we would pray and talk about that. Then they dated guys that had those characteristics. And my two girls are 23 as of this recording, and 27. And actually, my daughter's birthday is today, 24. Actually, man, I better send her a note. I've got dinner with her tonight. And what we did, guys, is we prayed about what are the men that they want to one day marry, qualities. And both of them, the oldest one married a guy that had 11 of the 12 qualities, and the youngest one had 12 of the 12. And it's pretty out there. But tell you what, we prayed about it. And then down at the bottom here is a list of 13 things that we thought about for our kids, and Tammy and I talked about, prayed about, and then just different things. And then I'll show you one more here. Actually, I got two more. This is one where I was a little overweight, looked up when I was 50 years old, and I hadn't been living up, as I told you. Did I tell the orange juice story yet, Tucker?
No, we've not heard the orange juice
One of my
story.
favorite stories. Let me tell that story. I was having breakfast, Randy, about how long ago? I don't know, 10 years ago, with one of my clients, and the dude lost 50, 60 pounds, and he's like looking really great. And I'm like complimenting him, and I'm slamming down this orange juice. And for breakfast, he's like, dude, do you know what the GI is on that orange juice? And I'm like, GI, what's GI? He says, glycemic index. You know, you spike that hormone, and the hormone's insulin, and it tells your body to store fat. And you do that by you know, depends upon the food you eat and how high the GI is. And I'm like, man, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. He goes, well, do you know about calories? And I'm like, yeah. He said the 3 glasses of orange juice using shrink were probably 250 each in calories. That's 750 calories before you start eating that greasy bacon. And I step back and I'm going, man, health is one of my values, and I'm not living it. I don't even know how the body works. I need to put over on my education goals to learn about food and how the body works. And so I morphed my, you can see currently I morphed where I was at. And I did a lot.
Hey, what was the orange juice? Was it fresh squeeze with the pulps in it? Oh.
It was. My mom told me orange juice was good for you, Randy. And unfortunately, she was wrong. Now, my mom, before she passed away, she was just such an incredible woman in my life, just served people up. But she died overweight, big overweight, like a lot overweight. And I look and I go, she didn't live health for me. She lived a lot of other great qualities. And I didn't want to live living healthy for my kids. So I need to learn about it, drinking a lot of water, sleeping right, just a lot of simple things. And so, and actually, Randy, we put some of my materials on being healthier on Sales Community. That's kind of a gift for everybody that's part of Sales Community. Here's something kind of
yeah. We actually have one coming up called Strategic Health.
Oh, that's right.
And here's the most extreme. The vision board could be extreme, but if you want to get real extreme, if you can tell it quick, your blueberry raspberry GI story quickly.
When you go to a buffet, if you understand glycemic index, you can pick foods that have a higher or lower GI. The higher the GI, the more you spike insulin, and in simple state, you store fat. So blueberries and blackberries, if you like them both, blueberry is about a 44, higher than a blackberry at 22. So choose the blackberry. And if you know those kind of things, you're going to make better choices. And so set the goals accordingly. You know, here's one for you, Randy. How about this? And check this one out. On my mirror in my gym, I actually take and stencil out a magic marker, kind of the person I wanted to become. And that's like, you know, do you believe in what we're talking about? Now, Randy, why don't we talk about some of the ways that you take and you kind of segmented your goals down using some of the content that we've shared with you, and you kind of picked and learned and read about. And can you unpack a little bit about just some of the highlights here of what we've got on the screen?
Sure. And this is evolved over time, and this is on our Sales Community website under the tab Personal Goaling as well. But this is just kind of the top version of it. So again, not trying to profess my beliefs on anybody, but just to be conscious about where you want to go. So if you think about having a mission statement, having a positive outlook, and for me, here's things that impact me on the positive outlook side. So again, reading this kind of fires me up. If I'm down, I say, hey, let me go back to this. And, this is, all things that are really important to me. And then it's always hard because you have so many goals. So I try and narrow it down and, put in what are my top goals for the year. And, truth be told, doing the book, Your Go-To Sales Advisor, that was not even on the radar until I met with you in July, and you convinced me to do that. And also, full disclosure, Sales Community in January when I did this was not on the radar, but it kind of was my COVID moment after talking to a good friend, Peter Bell, and some others. But kind of having what are the top handful of goals, whether it's 4 or 5, and then further breaking them down, which again you can see on the site. But break other goals into family, spiritual, health, physical, professional, financial, social, and mental, and kind of what are the things that you want to do. And as I said before, you're never going to do all of them, but if you don't aim, you're not going to get there. So on average, I might do say 80% or so. And then as a follow-on, I also come up with a kind of evaluation process each year, which says, okay, how did I do? What do I wish I could have done different or better? And then besides the goals for this year, I have a maybe morbid kind of before I die, kind of, what are things I want to do and have on the radar. So anyway, that's how I do it. Anybody can start anywhere, but for Tony, here's kind of disclosure time for you. So on average, what % of your annual goals would you say you actually hit? And you got to tell the truth.
You know, that's a tricky question because I believe you need to adjust as you see more, and I do. I would
The answer is a number. It's not words.
75%.
Okay, there you go.
And I accomplish some things different than the way that I think that I'm going to accomplish them because I'm so focused with the understanding the RS will bring things into my life to help me accomplish them. And I think a lot of people need to get that you need to really take action on a daily basis consciously. And you also need to let your unconscious brain help you solve and bring things in to accomplish goals. I think you've seen a little bit in the video. I believe it's both conscious and unconscious helping you reach it. And as I'll repeat again, you keep morphing what's important to you tied to your values. Randy, let's move over into our summary document. Maybe I could start with you, Tucker, as you look at it. Of those 8 items, of the things we just covered, is there one or two that stood out to you today? Was there an epiphany you had? Anything that I've been sharing with you? Randy's been sharing things you thought about. What's an aha that you go, wow, that's a good one for me?
Yeah, I'd say number 2, begin with establishing your values. I think if you can shape everything around the values that you hold true and important to yourself, really being able to have that in the back of your mind. And, I think one of the themes that I really liked throughout this is understanding that you really got to write everything down. I think that's the most difficult part. It's that you can visualize anything, but once you actually write it down, I think that's the scariest hurdle to get over. And all of a sudden you put pen to paper, you're held accountable. That's what you're going after. So being able to create those through establishing your values and then, understanding also your high leverage activities. I think those 2 really stuck out to me today.
Let me encourage everybody again, if you hadn't taken a picture of the slide, take a picture of it. There's 8 big takeaways from what Randy and I just shared. Randy, what's on your mind on these 8? Anything you'd like to share as we're kind of moving into closure here?
Yeah, I just would come back to, you got to get to the first base. And first thing is, writing down anything for goals, whether it's 1, 5, 10, 20, 30, you got to get to first base. If you can get there, you got a chance of scoring. If you don't get there, no chance of scoring.
Yep, bingo. A couple things here as we close out. Many of the things that you see on the screen here are things that we're going to be covering in the future and are included in Sales Community. So be looking forward, if you would, to these future components. Depending upon when you're listening to this, it's being recorded. Just know that we've got lots of content. We're designing it very user-friendly in Sales Community so that we really make an impact. One thing in particular, this is our very last slide, is on the back of Results Faster, we have a target of 21 different lessons. Today, we're talking about goal setting. We're going to talk about many of the lessons in this bullseye, if you will, inside this target, and that we're just Randy and I are all about being able to motivate people to see things they haven't seen, be more impactful, design the life that you want, sell more effectively, grow more effectively, live more effectively, be happier. That's just, I just can't compliment you enough, Randy. Of all the many people that I've worked with and coached, it's such a win to see you just take action, and to be able to set up Sales Community to make this the way it is it's really cool. So any closing comments?
Yeah, appreciate it. This is great. Feel free to share. We will be posting this, as I said. Hopefully we can get the slides in there as well, but take action, share it with friends, colleagues, kids, and a lot of other great content coming from Sales Community. And the reminder for Tony's sessions, it's going to be every other Tuesday, 9 sessions around designing your life, strategic branding, strategic health, again, all things that are really important to how we lead all of our lives. And Tucker, thanks for being on here with us, and Tony, certainly for you, and Eloise, Danielle, and the team, and Jesse. Thanks, appreciate it, and we'll see you in 2 more weeks.
You got it, man. Help us spread the word, guys. Thanks now.